I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Members of the board, at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, the board actually adopted the tentative budget for the district. And as you recall, the tentative budget sets the budget cap or the limit for the budget bullet points for the various resources that we use when we compile the budget. But I've provided just a limited amount here, so we get input from the board, obviously from other staff, and also from the Finance and Investment Advisory Committee when we pull together the budget. The tentative budget was adopted and was filed and made available to the public, and public notice for this particular meeting was posted and advertised in accordance with state law. So with that, for fiscal year 2020, the budget is programmed in at $447,060, and this is a decrease of $4.01 million or 90% lower than the current fiscal year budget. And it's lower because we have fewer resources that we need to account for. So the district budget is in balance in that our financing sources, the pie chart on the left is equivalent to our financing uses, the pie chart on the right, or stated another way, all of our money is properly accounted for, either to be spent on a particular purpose or item, and or not to be spent and saved for future use. So with that, the district has two revenue sources. The first one is property taxes, and the district is set to establish, sorry about that. Okay, the district is set to levy a tax rate of $4.99 per $100 of net assessed valuation. The property taxes will generate about $76,370 during the year. Now, those taxes will be used primarily for debt service. We have principal and interest payments we need to make on our bonds, but there's a small component that will be used to pay for operations. So the developer of the district is obligated to support the district, so where the tax base isn't sufficient to make our debt service payments, the developer needs to step in and pay for the difference between the property taxes and our annual debt service. So for fiscal year 2020, we're expecting to bring about $371,000 into the district for developer contributions. If we look at the spend budget, again, $447,000, you can see that 95% is related to debt service, programmed in at $426,000. And that, again, is the principal and interest on the bonds. There's a small component for bank fees related to the debt. And then operations, which is a much smaller piece, 5%, $21,000, and that accounts for the district's administrative, engineering, and street maintenance costs. There are no ending fund balances on this particular slide because the district will consume all of the resources that are available to it. So with that, this is a public hearing. It means the public has another opportunity to provide commentary and feedback to the district board, at which point the board may make changes to what we've proposed before you here. But if you approve the resolution, it would adopt the fiscal year 2020 budget in the amount of $447,060, and the resolution also establishes that tax levy rate at $4.99. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Before I open the public hearing, does anybody have questions? At this time, I'll open the public hearing. I don't have any speaker cards on this, but if anybody would like to address the board. Seeing no movement, I'll declare the public hearing closed, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move to adopt resolution number 2019-0014.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Having no more further business on this, we're adjourned from the Rancho Cerrito Community Facilities District, and now we'll commence with the Quail Creek Community Facilities District. Hereby call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll?
Board Member Bracco.
Here.
Board Member Hicks, absent. Board Member Lutz.
Here.
Board Member Skelton. Here. Vice Chairperson Eckert.
Here.
Chairperson Murphy.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. We will move to call to the public. At this time...
Chairperson.
Yes.
if I could just make a brief announcement for those who are watching or
Or listening. Mhm.
Board Member Hicks has arrived. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the district board on any issue which is on tonight's agenda, or any issue which the district board can lawfully act upon at a future meeting. Pursuant to the Arizona Open Meeting Laws, the district board may not discuss the items with individual members of the district board, may respond to criticism made by those who address the district board, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask the matter be placed on a future agenda. I have no speaker cards for the Coral Creek Facilities District called to the public. Anyone like to address the board? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move to item number 4, which is the consent agenda. And I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved, and now we have item number 5. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing, discussion, and possible adoption of resolution number 37, approving a final budget for fiscal year 2020 in the amount of $1,012,410 pursuant to section 48-716 Arizona Revised Statutes as amended, ordering that an ad valorem tax be fixed, levied, and assessed on the assessed value of all the real and personal property within the boundaries of the district in amounts specified in the filed statements and estimates, providing for certified copies of this resolution in order to be delivered to the Pima County Board of Supervisors and the Arizona Department of Revenue, and providing that this resolution shall be effective after its passage and approval according to law.
Thank you. Mr. Mariani.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, at our last board meeting, the board adopted the tentative budget for fiscal year 2020, and that does set the budget cap or limit for the upcoming fiscal year. And again, you can make changes to the tentative budget, which was adopted at the last meeting. You can adjust things around, you can lower the amount, but you can't exceed that amount. So tonight we'll give you an opportunity to adopt that tentative budget. Again, the budget process is a fairly long one. It seems like once we kick off the new fiscal year, shortly thereafter that we're already starting to think about the subsequent fiscal year. So typically around December, we start pulling together the budgetary numbers and start applying our budget assumptions to our revenue projections and compiling the budget for the new fiscal year. We have a lot of input resources that we use. The most notable ones are listed here, which would include yourself, other staff members, and the Finance and Investment Advisory Committee. So at the last meeting, as I mentioned, we adopted the tentative budget, and that was made available to the public at various locations, including the website. And we also published a notice for this particular meeting, so the public should be aware that tonight that you have an opportunity to adopt the final budget. And all that's done in accordance with state law. So with that, the fiscal year 2020 budget is programmed for $1,012,410, and this represents an increase of $4,000 or 0.4% more than the current fiscal year adopted budget. So essentially, it's the same. It is a balanced budget in that our financing sources are equivalent to our financing uses. So all of our money is properly accounted for, either to be spent on a particular purpose or to be saved for future years. If you look at our revenue sources, the district has 3 revenue sources, and most notably property taxes. So the district will levy a $3.30 per $100, and that if the property tax base isn't sufficient to make the debt service payments, the developer needs to step in and pay the difference between what we owe on the bonds and what the district's going to collect in property taxes. And that's expected to generate $302,000 for the district, or 30% of the total. And then we do have $500 programmed for investment income during the year. Taking a look at our expenditure budget, you can see that debt service falls a little short of $1 million, $1 million during the year, 94% of the total. And that again are the principal and interest payments on the bonds, as well as a little bit for banking fees associated with the debt service. And then operations makes up 6% of the total, about $57,000 in total, and that pays for some of the maintenance costs on Quail Creek Veterans Municipal Park, and also pays for maintenance on the roadways that were constructed with the bonds. Again, no ending fund balances here. That's because the district consumes all of its available resources. It needs that developer contribution to essentially get that balanced budget state. And with that, this also is a public hearing, which means the public has an opportunity to provide feedback and commentary that you can consider. and then you can make changes to what we've proposed here. And then if you approve the budget resolution, it would adopt the budget in the amount of $1,012,410, and it also establishes that tax levy rate at $3.30 per $100. So that will turn back over to you.
Thank you. Any questions for AC?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just for the benefit of Quail Creek residents, they might note that the taxes raised by their payments increased.
Similar to what Las Tunas and Avenida. There's 3 or 4 crossings across Rancho Cerrito Boulevard. They all have arrows, but only one has a lighted thing that blinks to make attention that someone's pushed the button to cross at. And there's been a lot of people, a lot of kids obviously go to the park and such, and it seemed to be really, I've really noticed it lately since school's been out as well. So I just, whatever needs to start, if maybe somebody take a look at it and see if that's something that could be done. At the last town council meeting, there was a lot of concern raised by residents on the west side of I-19 with the expressway, and that's, such a divisive thing that I would encourage the board to continue to try and get a hold of ADOT and see what we can do. But, I think everybody, if you look at the map, you can see down at Amato, 19 kind of starts bending back east. That might be the perfect spot. I'm sure there's a lot of politics involved, but it seems like it would divide our community even more, more than what it should be. And then a final item, I'm also on the Parks and Rec Commission, and on the budget is $440,000 for pickleball and armadas at Quail Creek. My main point of that would be, I would like to say, let's make sure where these are built, because we had a lot of discussion. We had a big group come out at the Parks and Rec meeting and talk about how growing pickleball is. And I'd hate to put in 4 courts or whatever number it is and then have to expand and not have room to expand. If you look at the numbers of people, Quail Creek has about, I think 5,000, I looked at on the town website, about 5,000 people there that have their own courts, 16 of them. And within a half a mile, these courts would go, and there's only another less than 5,000 people that would be serviced by those. So you're looking at putting those courts on the side of town that maybe would service 5,000 people, whereas there's another 12,000 in Rancho Cerrito, and then on the west side of I-19, there's another 2,500 or so. So the population that would be serviced by those courts, because I'm going to assume that most of the Quail Creek people would play there, is limited. And I think either North Santa Cruz Park or Animax Park, there's I think a really good spot just west of where the new yard was put in, the little desert area there. So I just ask you to look at that, because we may need more courts in the future to be at. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. I don't have any more speaker cards. Anybody would like to address the council? Seeing no movement, I'll declare the call for public closed. And now we move to item number 7, which is council and town manager's summary of current events. Mr. Udall.
Hey, Mayor and Council, I don't have anything.
You don't have anything? Okay. Before I go,
I have one.
Yep.
This is dealing with our future planning session, I think September or something, we're going to get together. I'd like to ask the staff to be prepared with some data. How much would it take to get all of our roads up to a good condition? Number 2, how much would we need to spend a year to maintain that? And then number 3, come prepared with several options to fix our structural budget problem and try to find some revenue streams to support those goals. Okay? So it'll give us some time to play with some numbers and get an idea where we're at and how do we keep from going deeper. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I had a couple. There was a few updates I had when I was back east, just returned this morning. I was following Facebook with the police department, and I just wanted to thank and commend the video message with the new law that we put together about text-free or hands-free, no hands-free law in those media releases, so I appreciate that. I know we had, along with that social media outreach, Officer Bayer graduated from the Pima Community College Police Academy, so, and we have another officer at the Sheriff's Academy, so we look forward to that. Also, when I was over with the SIS fifth graders for the mock town council meeting, we were able to get a tour of the police headquarters, and I saw the improvements that were being made in the training room and the training session, which allowed not only for the police department to offer a better space to provide training, but I know my feedback from SUSD, we had, there's a lot of collaboration going on having that space available for also working for other members of the community, so I wanted to throw that out there. Also, when I was back east, I know a few of the council members, I wanted to welcome myself, Culver's. I'm going to go there tonight afterwards. They had their ribbon cutting last week, and I know we had a lot of the council members, and I was sorry I had to be back east. It was Mr. Culver himself. Dave Culver was there.
Does that mean we're going to be out before 10 o'clock?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
If you don't interrupt me, and then I'll get down.
Wasn't like that last time.
No, I know. But I was really appreciative of our investors. And then today, in the mail, I received, I'm not sure exactly, maybe you know, Mr. Udall, when Jersey Mike's is officially opening, but they did for their first 2 weeks, June 12th through June 21st, they're going to do a grand opening fundraiser for the Children's Miracle Network, and $2 will go towards that network as a contribution. But do you know when they're officially opening?
By that, I would say June 12th.
Okay. But usually there's always a soft opening just before. So I'm assuming this week on there. And then kudos to Park and Rec and all the staff. This is our 25th anniversary of the formation of the town, and we're trying to always look at ways to incorporate that. And coming up June 25th to July 25th, we're having the Sahuarita Try 25, and it's sort of self-paced where you can participate over that month. And I think it was Lynn, wasn't it Lynn, that started and really advocated to get that triathlon here?
Triathlon, well, healthy communities. Actually, we received several awards for being a healthy community. And we did we didn't do triathlons personally, but we had other coordinators come in and do it. And then we also did a townwide kind of a challenge for kids. No, not walkathon. We just did the challenge promoting
healthy communities and things. And we're pretty unique in the fact that we have a lake. And when I've gone to some of these triathlons at the lake before, in Arizona it's a little unique. A lot of times they do triathlons in a pool, and of course you can see the line at the bottom, and everybody swims straight. So it's interesting when they do it at the lake, and you see everybody sort of snaking back and forth, and it's everybody from local teams, put together to, high-level triathletes that use it as a tune-up. So it's just interesting in general. So thanks to Park and Rec for.
And this is for non-residents too, right?
Oh yes, yes. Oh yeah, people come from New Mexico to the triathlon and all over the place. So I just wanted to pass on the kudos for that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Since you're going to Culver's tonight, I'm going to interrupt you as many times as I possibly can.
Okay.
As you
You
know,
worried about
that
my
to be
weight line?
substantial. Yeah. I did forget one thing. I would like to, as some of you know, Verizon has installed the highest tower in southern Arizona to service residents of Quail Creek who get dropouts and problems with their Verizon phones. Could someone check to see if all the equipment has been installed and if it's in operation? Because the people that are using Verizon phones up in the upper portion, they're still having massive dropouts and no improvement in their service at all. And I know we were told that would be resulting in an improvement to that. So would somebody mind checking on that for us? We'd appreciate it.
Now, I don't live in Crow Creek, so if I drive by there, will it not recognize my phone, or?
Well, you have 50.
Oh, okay, thank you.
We run fee basis.
Thank you. Next, we move to, no other, item number 8 is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, and I apologize, Vice Mayor, did you have any comments on the report or update?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think you covered, I was gonna cover Culver's, because I was there and attended, and I highly recommend the lemon crumble that starts today.
Okay, I'll take that advice to heart when I go down there. We've now come to item number 9, Madam Clerk.
Regional Transportation Authority presentation entitled Working Together for a Better Future.
Thank you. Mindy Blake is here. She's the outreach coordinator from the FEMA Association of Governments, PAG, which I serve on as a council member, and will present Working Together for a Better Future. Mindy.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give you an RTA update. We are in a really exciting time of transportation in the region right now, and we want you to be part of the conversation. We're actively going out into the community, and we're talking to as many groups as we can, because we know that a successful RTA plan means that our community, our region, will support it. My purpose today is to convince you to get involved and be part of the process, and I hope that you come away learning some new information also about the Regional Transportation Authority. Just a little bit of background on the RTA. The RTA is a political subdivision created under state law. It's funded through a special taxing district with a mission to deliver transportation projects that increase our mobility, our economic vitality, and our safety. We're not the city or the county. The RTA is a separate governing body. Pima County voters approved the 20-year plan back in 2006, and they also approved a half-cent sales tax to go along with the plan to pay for the transportation projects. The RTA is managed by an independent board established by state law. There are 9 board members who are on the RTA board, 1 board member for each jurisdiction in the county. And they work together with the community at large to shape our transportation future for not every commuter. It truly is a multi-modal plan. The RTA board is responsible for the ultimate delivery of the plan, and the jurisdictions manage the project. So, for example, if it's a project that is in Sahuarita, the town of Sahuarita will manage that project. Same for Pima County, the city of Tucson, South Tucson, etc. More than 840 projects have been completed, including intersection improvements, pedestrian crossings, bus pullouts, sidewalks, bike lanes, and roadway corridors. One thing you probably have noticed here, in addition to the corridor projects, are some of the signalization projects and expanded transit into Sahuarita and the Green Valley area as well. And I wanted to share with you what some residents are saying about RTA-funded projects.
It's fantastic. You feel very safe. It's a very smooth ride, and it's an extremely well-maintained trail all the way around.
Much safer than what it used to be, especially with the congestion of the traffic and the bike traffic, especially at certain times of the year.
I think it's a great project for families, especially to be able to go somewhere where it's safe.
It gives the pedestrians and the bicyclists in that area a point to cross that people are expecting them to cross. It gives the warnings to the drivers that somebody's about to cross well in advance of them stepping out in the street.
It's really relaxing for me because I'm a reader, and to have that half an hour, 20 minutes where you don't have to worry about traffic and I can just read.
Well, this is all great, but here is our situation. The region has a $15 billion funding gap for transportation needs over the next 30 years, and that's even with continuation of the RTA tax. We must continue to identify and consider regional funding sources because we can't wait for the state or the federal government to come to the rescue. And one of the challenges that we face is the decline in purchasing power for transportation construction. Historically, transportation funding has come into the region from state and federal gas taxes, coming back to the jurisdictions. The gas tax has not changed since the early 1990s, and as a result, that funding model is eroding. And the cost of building roads and other transportation projects, as we know, is going up. The tax simply is not keeping up with inflation. For example, for every 3 projects that we could construct in the early 2000s, those same dollars would only construct 2 projects today. But the gas tax is the only one funding source that comes into the region. There are other sources, but they come with strings attached as to how we can use the money. FEMA Association of Government Senior Transportation Planner Nathan Barrett gives us kind of a transportation funding 101 and shows us how RTA dollars give us the most flexibility.
We have here on the table a representation of the average annual transportation revenues that our region receives. Each box represents $10 million. As you can see, the RTA represents the largest single funder of transportation in our region. It's also the most flexible, as I'll demonstrate. Federal transit dollars can only be used on transit projects. Federal highway dollars are generally used on roadways. Regional HERF dollars come from a variety of state transportation funds, but can only be used on roadways, with a smaller amount being limited to the use on highways and interstates. ADOT dollars are a mixture of federal and state transportation funds, but can only be used on interstates and highways. The way we use our RTA dollars, however, have been defined by you and your neighbors. In 2006, voters approved a transportation plan that defined how we use these dollars. As we look to the future and the continuation of the RTA plan, the versatility and flexibility that we have in defining how these dollars are used is unmatched by any other funding source. Because of the sheer quantity of RTA dollars that we receive and their flexibility, this is a key component in delivering quality transportation to our region.
Well, the current RTA plan and sales tax are set to expire in June of 2026. And while it's only 2019, we need to be proactive and establish a new 20-year program very soon. We know that identifying future transportation projects for the region is going to be a citizen-driven process. You will have the opportunity to give your input during many parts of the development process. And this is what we asked of you when we developed the current plan, the 2006 plan that we're in right now. We'll be coming back to you so that you can weigh in on the shared vision of safety and mobility for the entire region. As we look to the future, what do we need to do to develop a successful RTA plan? Well, for that answer, we went back to some of the people who were involved in developing the current plan.
It's very important and it allows you to have accountability. The people want to know what it is. It's their money, what their money is going for, and that it will accomplish the purpose.
Nothing's perfect, but this was as close to perfect as we've had in Pima County during my time here.
I think moving forward, there will be no other way than that cooperation and that unity, because we need to focus on what unites us all, not what divides us all.
The RTA is proving that it was the right thing for the communities to do, to be able to manage our growth in a way that addresses transportation safety and all the things that all the jurisdictions need. The way that it was set up, the RTA, everybody's equal. And so you can take a deep breath. They're doing their job the way it's supposed to be done.
The RTA has a proven history on our side. As we move into planning and development of an RTA continuation plan, the process has already started by getting the first group of citizens involved. We expect the plan development process to take 24 to 30 months, and the conversation will include how to best meet the region's evolving transportation needs. The RTA board appointed a Citizens Advisory Committee in May of 2018. It's hard to believe it was a year ago now. And they will begin developing a new set of transportation investments across the region. This group is made up of individuals, they represent a broad cross-section of the community, and not any one interest. But they're people like you who care about our quality of life, and they want to be part of the process. Here's a short video to introduce you to some of your committee members.
Our prosperity depends on our ability to collaborate and to work together for, you know, a big goal.
I truly believe that we need to work together to build a better transportation structure.
We as citizens of the community have a need to make our voices and our opinions heard. So, and you know, I'm one person, but I definitely want to make sure that all the residents also feel like they're being heard as well.
It's important to me as a citizen and also as a business owner that we listen to our community and assist them in creating a better life.
I learned many years ago that transportation is a really important facet of the quality of life.
Transportation is at the heart of a livable and smart community, and people deal with it every day, whether they're driving their own car or they're using the bus system or some other mode of transportation. Their ability to live their lives is impacted by this every single day.
Okay, now back to the wheel. This is where we are in the process right now. Members of the Citizens Advisory Committee will establish plan priorities with outcomes in mind. So performance-based planning is actually establishes links between investments made and expected transportation outcomes. What results do we want in a new transportation plan? Improved commute times, better accessibility, maybe expanded transit, improved bicycle and pedestrian facilities, maybe all of those and more. Well, the strategies and priorities identified in our region's long-range transportation plan will serve as the foundation of the committee's discussions. That's the Regional Mobility and Accessibility Plan. It goes out to the year 2045. The group will work with a group of technical experts to ensure that the projects are feasible and that they make sense. And at this stage, everything is on the table. Nothing is locked in. And you'll have the opportunity to be heard all throughout the process. All of our meetings are open to the public, plus we will hold open houses. We're working on a survey that we can send out to our stakeholders, you, and we invite you to be part of the process. Just to show you how you can make a difference, during the draft public input portion of the 2006 plan, the plan that we're in right now, more than a dozen changes were made based on public input of that plan, so it's really important. And after public input, the elected bodies of local governments will have an opportunity to review and endorse the plan, and the RTA will take action on a final draft of the plan. And there will be a call for an election. We expect the RTA ballot measure would be developed along with voter information materials, and of course there would be two measures related to the ballot. One would be the actual projects themselves, the investments that would be made across the region, and then there's the funding question: how will we pay for the projects? I'm sure many of you are aware of House Bill 2109, that passed the legislature this year. And what that does is it gives the RTA board an additional funding tool. It allows the board to ask voters for not just a half cent, but up to a 1 cent sales tax or excise tax to fund the RTA projects. We don't know what the amount will be. It could remain at a half cent, but the voters will have the final say. And finally, this is a time I want to ask you, if you want to, you can take out your cell phones and take out your smartphones, and we want you to be part of the process. You can text the number 22828, that would be in the number line, and then in the text line, RTA News, all one word. It will prompt you to give us your email address. We'll make sure that we get you on the RTA database so that you will get updates from RTA or PAG 4 or 5 times a year. And as we move further into this process, you'll probably receive more updates from RTA. We do have a lot in common, and it's up to all of us to talk about what will bring us together and what our needs will be for our transportation future, so that we can increase our safety, our economic vitality, and our growth in our communities in Pima County. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If we have time, I also would like to direct you to the back table where we have a brand new, literally just got this week. We put this out once a year. This, our mobility brochure focuses on the RTA continuation. It could answer a lot of questions that you might have about the RTA. And also, there's a project list. This is exactly how it appeared on the ballot. So for those of you who were here in 2006 and may have voted on this issue, this is what you saw. So with that, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to give you this RTA.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you for coming in. RTA has been a success story, and I will support its reauthorization. However, I cannot and will not support an increase in the gas tax. I believe it's about 18 cents right now. It has been since 1993. However, in the studies I've seen, there's no correlation between the amount of the gas tax and the road conditions. As with most problems in Pima County and Tucson, it's not the amount of money coming in, it's where it's going and prioritizing it. And I will not put another penny into that process. Now, if you want to focus on hybrids and electric vehicles and let them pay their fair share of road usage, go ahead. Add a tax or something, because they're not picking up on the gas tax. And as vehicles get better miles per gallon, that's also reducing. So it is a regressive tax. It hits the ones that can least afford it the worst, especially trying to get to and from work. So I cannot support the gas tax. And in fact, at 18 cents, they're making more than the oil companies, which have about a 3 to 5 cent gallon profit margin.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
First of all, blast from the past. When he introduced you, I'm like, I remember her. For those that don't know, she was on TV News. I don't remember which.
Channel 13.
Channel 13. Yeah. Enjoyed your program. RTA works, and I'm a former chairwoman of RTA, and I was in 2006. My husband and I also worked toward the planning process. And it absolutely works, and I would definitely encourage individuals to support it. I mean, as we know, Pima County can't get a transportation or a roadway bond passed. The city of Tucson, I heard, maybe rumor, but I heard some neighborhoods are even considering taxing themselves to get some of their roadways improved. But the RTA, the regional transportation, the board, the advisory committees, the technical committees, they work. They are accountable. And they listen, as they're planning, they're listening to the public. And the only concern anyone might have is, again, and I'm sure this board would support me, sometimes the big guys, the county or the city of Tucson, may attempt to compromise the RTA board. But as long as we are strong and we have oversight, it's not going to happen.
And just for the audience, if you weren't here early, AC brought it up at the last meeting. Sahuarita Road improvements was our major benefit that we received from that. And if you weren't here before that, it was 1 lane each way, no sidewalks. The old high school graduations, you literally just pull off the side of the road and park and go to the school. So that was really showed what the benefit of it was, and we were fortunate because we were early on in the process. So when the monies got a little thinner and they had to slow it down, we were fortunate because we already had our major project funded and constructed. So as this conversation goes on, there'll be many things that will be discussed and talked about, and what projects where and how it's divided up amongst all the different municipalities to include the two nations.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sure you've already dealt with this, but I'll underline it. What happens south of the airport is very important. We are the future growth of Pima County, and that's going to occur. The return on the dollar investment for putting in new infrastructure is cheaper south of the airport than it is north of the airport, because you're having to recover from existing infrastructure, change it, alter it, remove it, replace it. We need some attention down here, especially in the areas of roads and bike trails and so forth. And the beauty of it is you can do more down here for the dollar than you can in other areas. Because again, you're dealing with raw land, you're dealing with state land, you're dealing with an area that doesn't have a fixed infrastructure that has to be removed before it can be replaced. These are just thoughts for the long term, but we find, especially on through Green Valley, we find that we're often the plank holding down the bottom of the barrel. And we'd like to move that up a little bit, and RTA is a great organization, you're doing good work, you have moved it up in the barrel. But again, I don't know the makeup of the council, but I know there's going to be a lot of opinion about the drastic needs of Tucson and North Pima County. Understandable, but please, we need some attention down here because we're going to be developing, and we don't want to develop in a way that is going to lead to future change that's more expensive than totally necessary.
Yes.
Councilmember Luskin, Mayor Murphy, rest of the council. There are a couple of representatives on the Citizens Advisory, you're aware of, yeah. And I believe there are at least two that, one newly relocated to Green Valley there. So, and we also do encourage people to come to the meetings. There's one July 8th that will be held at Pima Association of Governors downtown Tucson, planning parking in the summertime. So I would encourage you to get in on those meetings as well.
And I know I'll be an advocate for it as well, and, hopefully you will, but I know when they hold them down in Green Valley and Salarita, they usually get really good attendance, so I think they had 260 or so, if I remember correctly, the last time around, so if you could at least carry back the message that, to have a fair share of them in a community that one will turn out and give their voice, I think would be very important.
Absolutely. We've had some 400 open houses the last time. You may remember that. And we expect that we have, more tools now with social media and, digital media and things like that, but we certainly see it's so important to have that face-to-face connection with the community.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mindy, just one, so I'm assuming, and I apologize if I'm asking you to repeat yourself, but the advisory committee and the plan priorities, the process where we're at right now, so they're looking at other funding sources aside from the gas tax, is that correct?
Well, primarily, the half-cent sales tax that they're looking at to fund the project, any future projects beyond 2026, which is currently what funds the RTA projects now, the half-cent sales tax that we pay county-wide. There are a few exceptions, prescription drugs and groceries, and a few others too. So they're looking at what are we going to be able to collect in another 20-year plan to pay for a set of transportation projects that they and that the board ultimately would approve.
Yes, so this would be just whether it be reauthorization of the half cent or portion up to it. In the boxes, correct me if I'm wrong, was just to really demonstrate that the RTA has been the greatest funder.
Right.
A lot of times we have these conversations and we think the federal government kind of comes to the rescue all the time on there, and as you saw from the box, that was one of the smallest funding sources.
Right.
So it's sort of like, it's, to be, it's up to us. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, there was I remember there was a discussion about trying to, the RTA had normally done new construction, but there was a push from Tucson and Pima County to get them to do maintenance on existing roads.
Right.
Where is that right now?
Oh, Councilmember and Mayor Murphy and the rest of the council, that would be a discussion that the Citizens Advisory Committee will have, and I have heard some comments, talking about maintenance. And I think it's going to be something that ultimately the RTA board will have to decide.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of that unless all of the funding for the roads goes along with it. Because knowing that this local government, they'll give you the expense and they'll keep the revenue stream. And that's a non-starter.
I think the nice thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is once it's approved by the voters, whatever it says it has to go to, it has to go there.
Yeah.
So that gives it an advantage.
That's on the new construction.
Yes.
This is maintaining existing within the county and in the city.
Right.
I think where Councilmember Bronco is referring to, I think as the advisory committee, that's something my understanding is that they probably will look into, but if the voters don't agree with it, then it's not gonna fly.
Right.
But the current plan does not allow for it.
Right.
So,
And
but yeah.
it's really early on the future plan of what's gonna be in there and what the rate's gonna be set and all of that. That's still yet to come.
But there is a lot of compromise. I know the whole process requires compromise on all ends.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Well, thanks for being here. As you see, we do have a lot of interest.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks, appreciate it. Now we, I'm sorry. Now we move to item number 10, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible adoption of resolution number 2019-0601, adopting a tentative budget in the amount of $63,693,670, adopting the estimated amounts required to meet the public expenses for the town of Sahuarito for the fiscal year 2020, authorizing and directing publication of statements and schedule for the tentative budget, together with a notice of hearing on said budget and notice of date of final adoption of said budget.
Thanks for returning once again, Mr. Mariani.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council. So tonight you'll have an opportunity to adopt the tentative budget for the town, and the town's fiscal year, like every other governmental agency in the state, it begins on July 1st. So the tentative budget is an important and required step in the public process of developing a budget every year. And similar to the districts, whatever you adopt tonight will set the spending limit or the budget cap for the next fiscal year. So you'll be thankful to know that the presentation tonight will be much more abbreviated than the 2-hour presentation I gave. However, the council did make some changes, and so I will highlight those changes, and I have to also put it in context, so there'll be a little bit of repetition, and I'll apologize ahead of time for that, but it should be much more abbreviated. And with that, let's get into it. So, for fiscal year 2020, the tentative budget is programmed at $63,693,670. It is a balanced budget in that our financing sources, that pie chart on the left, is equivalent to our financing uses. So again, every dollar that we have at the beginning of the year, our savings account at the beginning, plus all the revenues and sources we're going to collect during the year, are programmed to be spent for a particular purpose that you approve, or to be set aside as something that we don't have the ability to spend. And that would be our ending fund balances. So in simple terms, all of our money is accounted for properly. The tentative budget is an increase of $4.82 million, or 8.2% more than our 2019 adopted budget. And it's a higher budget because the town has more resources that it needs to account for. So I should point out that the amount that you see here tonight in total is $146,200 higher than what I presented at the budget study session. And it's higher because our proceeds are higher, our financing sources are higher, and that we had to account for capital lease financing on 2 additional police patrol vehicles that this tentative budget now includes that the original budget that we proposed did not. So I'll cover that a little bit more in depth. So if we look at our funding sources, and this slide shows you where we're going to get the money to pay for everything during the year. You see that our beginning balances, and that's our savings account, the amount of money that we're planning on bringing forward to next year, is $23.8 million, or 37% of our total financing sources. The remaining pie wedges represent our new revenues and sources that we're expecting to collect during the year. And in total, they amount to $39.9 million and make up 63% of our total funding. Looking at intergovernmental revenues, $15.1 million. Those are very important to the town. The largest component of that represents our state share revenues, both state income taxes, vehicle license taxes, fuel taxes, and sales taxes. We get a component of that based off of our population, and that helps pay for operations. But a component of this is also tied to our capital grants. Taxes, you see that amount is bolded. That's nearly $11 million, represents only 17% of the total funding sources for our budget. Most people, I think, if you would ask them about the budget, they would think that taxes would be the largest component, but it's not. I wanted to point out that we are not recommending any changes to our tax rates or tax structures as part of this budget. The other 4 categories shown make up $13.6 million, or 22% of the total budget. Now, if you take a look at that white pie wedge of debt and lease sources, as I mentioned on the previous slide, that number that you see here is $146,200 higher than what was presented at the budget study session. And that's for the capital lease proceeds to pay for those vehicles. Okay, this slide shows you how we're going to spend the money that we have. So you see operations is the largest component at $25.9 million, or 41% of the total budget. Now, compared to what I presented during the budget study session, this number is $555,700 higher. That would include allocating $350,700 for 2 new police officers. Obviously, if we have new staff, we need to supply those officers, so there's $15,000 for those officers included in that. And then the 2 additional police patrol vehicles also are a component of that. Also in that amount is $200,000 for pavement management program. That was something that came out of the budget study session. So hopefully those additional expenditures will actually result in future savings for us. We're allocating another $5,000 for basic health and human services program, and that's specifically for the food bank support that we talked about. I think initially we're talking about we'll just take care of it in the budget. $5,000 is a relatively small amount, but since we're making other changes to the general fund, we would just add that component. The debt service component is $6.5 million. That's 10% of the total funding uses. The amount that you see here is $28,450 higher than what I showed you at the last meeting. And that represents an increase to the first year's principal and interest payments, or debt service payments for those 2 vehicles that we're going to acquire. The capital outlay budget, $9.2 million, or 14% of the total. This amount is the same as what we presented at the last meeting. And our ending balances are the amount of funds that we're not planning or authorized to spend. And the $21.99 million that you see here is $437,950 lower compared to my earlier presentation. And it's lower because we have to pay for it, so there's not going to be added. Okay, drilling down into our debt service, the town has $45.6 million of outstanding debt, and that comes with an annual debt service obligation, essentially our principal and interest payments on the debt issuances that we have outstanding. Compared to the previous presentation, the SIF and the loans and lease portion of $2.797 million, that's $28,450 higher. And that goes back to the capital lease financing, the first year's principal and interest payments for those 2 vehicles. I mentioned earlier that the capital outlay budget, $9.2 million, is the same as what we presented earlier, so I'm not going to bother reading down the project list, because that's included in the last audio recording. But it's worth noting that the Samtech project, that $6.44 million, represents nearly 70% of the total capital outlay budget. And just because it was brought up tonight, I'll also point out that we have $440,000 for those pickleball courts and Ramadas at Quail Creek Veterans Municipal Park. Okay, so this is drilling down into the operational budget, total of $25.9 million. You see that personnel category, and this is very common in governmental budgets, is the largest component. Pays for salaries, wages, overtime, all the fringe benefits associated with having staff. This budget includes 154.4 full-time equivalent positions in the town. This number is 2 FTE higher than what we presented at the budget study session. So we were recommending 5 FTE. This includes 7, which would add those 2 additional officers that were requested. The amount is $189,500 higher than what I presented before. The services are $200,000 higher at $6.33 million than what I presented at the last meeting. Back up on that. The total is $6.33 million, $200,000 higher than the last presentation, and all of that is related to the pavement management program because that's outsourced. Supplies are $15,000 higher, and that relates to the 2 new officers, and that brings the total up to $1.38 million. The other category is $5,000 higher, and that's related to the Health and Human Services program for the food bank sponsorship. Total on that, $1.9 million. Operating capital is $146,200 higher for the acquisition of the 2 new police patrol vehicles, bringing the total operating capital spend at $1.237 million. Okay, so this takes the same bucket of money, the $25 million, and allocates it across our departments. So we have 15 departments, and as you notice, police is the outlier there at about 2.5 times the next largest department. What that tells you is that this budget has a focus on public safety. But if you go down the list, with the more costly budgets being on the left side, less costly budgets on the right side, you'll see that those that are more costly are those that provide public services directly to our residents and also to our business investors in the community. Okay, if we look at the PD budget, that amount went up $350,700 for the officers, supplies, and vehicles. The streets department went up $200,000 for the pavement management program, and the non-departmental budget went up $5,000 for the additional food bank support. So when I'm talking about it went up, it's not compared to the current fiscal year budget, but compared to my previous presentation. Okay, this slide compares our revenues and expenditures by fund, and we budget by fund because it's required for us to demonstrate compliance with laws and policies. And so, if you look at the general fund, expenditures went up $209,500 for the officers and supplies and food bank support, but still our revenues exceed our expenditures by nearly $560,000, even with those additional costs built into it. If you look at the capital infrastructure improvement fund expenditures, those went up $174,650 for the additional vehicles that we're going to be acquiring, those 2 new patrol vehicles, and also for debt service on those vehicles because we're using the capital lease financing. If you look at the other funds, there were no changes to those other funds. This slide shows you our interfund activity, and basically what I mean by that, it's the transfer of resources between our funds. So this is very much the same as the previous presentation with one exception, and that is you see the general fund to the HERF fund, there's $700,000 there. That number is $200,000 higher than the previous presentation because the general fund is going to pitch in that $200,000 towards the extra payment management that you desire. Okay, so this slide puts the previous 2 slides into perspective. So I'll use an example here in the Capital Infrastructure Improvement Fund. If we go back 2 slides, we have a fairly significant decrease when you compare our revenues to our expenditures. That's a $6.12 million deficit net revenue. Of that amount, $706,000 will be covered by transfers. So you see this amount down here. So $706,000 in resources will be transferred in to cover a portion of that deficit. But the fund is also acquiring $4.3 million of debt proceeds to help finance that. Okay. But it is tapping into our fund balances as well. We have our contracting taxes. We've had a lot of growth and development in the town. We've accumulated those taxes for capital purposes. And so we will tap into that to actually bring about more infrastructure in the community, things that the community wants. But when I mention that, this puts it in perspective that even though it's a $6.1 million deficit that you see there, we still have $1.1 million in fund balances available to help finance our future capital outlay. Most notably in the general fund, you see that our ending fund balances are 107% of our budgeted expenditures. So this is one of the key metrics that my counterparts, bond rating agencies, other councils look at when they talk about a community being financially healthy. And indeed we are. We have lots of savings, and I think we've used our savings wisely. Those savings are one-time funding sources, so you don't typically want to allocate that for ongoing expenditures, but it is appropriate to tap into those fund balances when there are worthwhile projects that the community wants.
DC, do you have, and you probably may not be able to answer that, with a third of our budget being ended fund balance, or more than a third, how many other communities do you think in Arizona could say that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't know for sure, but my guess would be 0. Could probably, there may be some, but I would imagine that they're probably very, very small jurisdictions if there are.
Mostly for Lynn. Yeah. You've been here a long time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I do recall there was a time during the lean years, and I would say it was because we were so new, our town, newly incorporated, and we had, growth, and we were continuing to have growth, and so our construction sales tracked. I mean, we were sitting very pretty when other towns were suffering. But we've been able to maintain our fiscal responsibility.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you look at the other funds, I've highlighted the Capital Infrastructure Improvement Fund and the General Fund. But if you look at the wastewater fund, you see that it does have an ending fund balance of $876,300. So that's great because it's the first time it's been black for many years. But that's the total fund balance amount. So there is still a working capital deficit in the fund, and the general fund is subsidizing that. It's kind of carrying that burden. And that's to the tune of $3.81 million. But the other funds really just use the resources that are available to it for the purposes intended. So, each year we go through, when we put together the annual budget, we do it as part of a 5-year plan. I didn't highlight that in today's discussion, but in the budget study session, I covered it a little more at length. But if you look at the 5-year plan, you look at the general fund, the revenues exceed expenditures each year of the 5-year forecast, and that gap actually widens over time. We're seeing a lot of new businesses open up, some economic development, and that's going to be to our financial benefit. If you look at the wastewater fund, we are following the financial plan and rate study recommendations to address those deficits I just talked about, and the other funds only consume the resources that are available to them. So because of that, we believe that this is a balanced budget that's affordable and sustainable for at least the next 5 years. I didn't cover the reorganization, but hopefully this will just be a reminder that we are moving some divisions between departments. Communications division is moving from the town clerk department into the town manager's department, and the sewer billing and collections division is moving out of finance and going into the wastewater department. We are adding 7 FTE, full-time equivalent employee positions, and we're also making some other promotions and reclassifications to other positions, and that's to keep up with the new demand and growth and hopefully to provide more efficient and effective services to the community. The budget focuses a lot on ongoing maintenance of our infrastructure, equipment, technology, roads, parks, and other facilities. And as always, we focus on the strategic plan when we put together the budget. So with that, the next steps are, you all have an opportunity to make changes to what's presented before you. And then you can adopt the tentative budget by resolution that's been provided to you already. And just as a reminder, that would set the spending cap for this upcoming fiscal year, at which point you could only move things around within that limit or reduce the amount. And then if the tentative budget is approved tonight, we would set up a public hearing and final budget adoption for our next council meeting on June 24th, and we would advertise that pursuant to state statutes. And hopefully also as a reminder, the town manager recommended budget, which has a lot more details, over 200 pages worth, is available on the town's website. It doesn't include some of the changes that the council made at the budget study session, but it provides, most of what's going to occur, and then these tentative budget schedules will be made available as a supplemental to that. So all that information will be made available to the public, and then at the next meeting, it'll be a public hearing. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody have any
Mr. Mayor?
discussions? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to, the Green Valley News this last week covered the article about the sewage treatment dues or payments that are substantially due in this community, and the methodology that you're looking at to start working in that direction to see if that's feasible. I can't tell you how much I agree with that. The fact is that there should be nobody being carried when so many people are paying their dues and paying their worth, and we really do need to get that in hand, and hopefully it can be put in hand with respect to those people who have a real need, but we just can't keep carrying that in the budget and pretending like it doesn't exist. So just want to pass on a well done on that, and certainly encourage the approach.
Yes.
Casey and Kelly, thanks for, doing that last minute adjustment too, but I think that'll help.
I would concur. Any other questions? No? If not, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Move to adopt resolution number 2019-0601.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now we move on to item number 11. Madam Clerk.
Recognition of outgoing elected officials.
At this time, I'm going to ask Liz Gelton to join me at the podium And while making my way down there, I know it's a little hard for the vice mayor, because I can't see. Yes, that wasn't you, no, you're staying. To offer a few words, because I know she can't see the movement of bodies. Vice Mayor, would you like to start it off while I start walking down to the podium?
Perfect, thank you, Mayor, I appreciate the time. I am so very sad that Lynn is leaving us. I know that she has sold her home and is moving to another location, and incredibly sad that we're the Town of Fruita going through it on the council. The first time I met Lynn, I sat down at a community roundtable discussion, and she was across the table. When I sat down, I was holding my newborn daughter, who turned 13 this week. So I've been working with Lynn for a long time. That first meeting, I quickly began to admire Lynn's thoughtful comments, her long-term vision for the town, and her ability to look at the discussions from different viewpoints. When I was first elected, she helped me tremendously as I learned the lingo and process of being a council member. Over the years, I've regularly reached out to her on issues to figure out possible solutions to Town of Sarita's success through her teenage years as Town of Sarita is largely because of Lynn's leadership. I will miss her mentoring greatly, and I know the town will miss her leadership. Thank you so much, Lynn. I wish I could be there. You have been a great colleague and a friend.
Thank you. And if I heard it correctly, you started as a teenager. That's pretty good. You're not much far from there right now. You know, this is just, you know, a very, very small token of our appreciation. I moved here in 2003, and she served on the council from 2000 to 2007, was mayor 2007 to 2011, and again served as a council member 2011 to 2019. So when I moved here in 2003, Rancho Sarita really just started. The first home was closed, I think, in 2001. So you were elected before even Rancho Sarita, you know, got started. When the town was incorporated in 1994, which wasn't too many years before that, we only had 1,800 residents in the town when we were incorporated. So I can't even imagine what you've witnessed, you know, and, you know, you've been a big part of it. And the reason I brought up the budget, you know, because we are in that place, because through your leadership and others, we've had, you know, really good financial discipline. You know, we invest when we need to, but to have that type of ending balance is really interesting. And I remember when I was used to sit out there, it made me think when you were serving with Marty Moreno, because I know she used the boxes a lot for kind of describe things. So that was kind of I think Nathan stole that from you too, on there. But, you know, we just, you know, and I know your journey has been through, you know, so much with births and fortunately the passing of Dennis and other things, you know, so many things connected. So I know your heart and a piece of you will always be in Salarita. And on behalf of the council, I just wanted to pass on this small token of our appreciation and allow you to say a few words. I think we have some pictures. After she's finished, we have cake. Thanks for staying around.
Mr. Mayor.
Refreshments. If your mom says it's okay.
Mr. Mayor, are we gonna give
yes,
comments or wait until after
yes,
she's done?
who would you prefer?
Well, let me speak first.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I never expected I would be here at this time saying goodbye because of a move. I really thought my exit would be because I decided not to run for election or because I wasn't elected for another term. But here I am. I don't, just on a whim, I decided that because I've been spending so much time with my family up in the northwest side of Tucson, that it would be best to be closer to them. So I'm leaving to be closer to my family, my grandchildren, which ironically the reason why I came to Salarita was to bring my kids here to raise them in this town because of the lifestyle that we enjoy, and I knew that it was a good place to raise a family. So yes, I've watched this town and I've participated since its infancy. So I do feel like a parent in a sense. So from its growth to what it is today, 25 years strong, amazing to me. It's just amazing what we have accomplished. Watching them dig the hole for the lake. I remember driving out to the desert and seeing that, and I'm like, there's going to be a lake in the desert? But that's a whole different story. But it is what it is, and it is an asset to our community, a very beautiful asset that we all enjoy and love. But my desire, when I decided to run for council, actually my first 2 years was as an appointee, but then I decided to run because I wanted to give back. And so many of us want to give back to the community that we love and support. So that's, just to help maintain the rural lifestyle. I was seeing or expecting this growth and taxation, all these, bad things you hear about when a town is incorporated. I thought, I better get involved. But what I didn't realize, that it's not just getting out there with your voice. You actually have to put a lot of time and effort to learn how to be a policymaker. You have to learn what an acre foot of water actually is. You have to learn about lumens. We have dark skies, and we wanted to maintain dark skies, so we went out in parking lots of Safeway to understand what lumens were all about. Signage and sign code. I'm sad that Sarah Moore isn't here, because we spent a lot of late nights together with study sessions just so that we could understand, because it's an emotional subject. Talk about signage, boy, it brings people out, not just in our community, but in the region. We've had people from all over coming to talk to us about the importance of doing it right. And of course, I was always knee-deep in wastewater. But I guess most importantly, the skill that I can take away with me and what I hope I brought to this community was the skill of envisioning and planning. You really have to plan for the future. Our 5-year budget forecast. Sometimes you try to think beyond 5 years. It's as difficult as it is, but you do. You have to try to go beyond that. But at least if you can hone into the 5-year period, you're going to have a strong budget. And I think we've done very well in maintaining that. I am very proud of what Sahuarita is today. It is a growing, prosperous town. It's a good place to raise a family and to retire, or to retire. It's the same as it was when I decided to move here, when I began my journey here. It's not rural in the sense that it was back then, but it is still a great place to raise a family and to retire. I read recently that every person passing through life will unknowingly leave something and take something away. This quote was in reference to memory and memories. So I leave here with good memories, mostly of the people. People that have guided me, supported me. The outpouring of kindness and love when my husband passed away. And then the council members and staff that always had my back when we had to make tough decisions. And of course, I had theirs, because we did make some very tough decisions throughout the 25 years. There's memories of accomplishments and things that will take us well into the future. And these are based on policies of the past. I do believe, and I leave here knowing, that Sahuarita will thrive. I'm glad to see Jan is here, my neighbor, because it is important for us to thrive, and the quality of life as we have it has got to be maintained. And Jan and my other neighbor, sorry I don't remember your name, But it's very important, and Jeff spoke of it tonight too, very important that we take a stance on the I-11 corridor. We have to maintain our quality of life, and our decisions in working with ADOT and those others, the federal government, and seeing that it doesn't destroy us is very important. So I leave it in good hands, and I know that you guys will take care of it. Thank you.
Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you don't want to cry, I kind of feel like I will. So I just wanted to say, Sahuarita is unique in the fact that we do nonpartisan elections. And I look at Lynn and I think of Lynn and I think she is the epitome of nonpartisan. She works across party lines. She works with everybody in our community. She always has. I've known Lynn for, when we were thinking of timelines, I was trying to think how far back, but from back at Animax, and then mutual friends, and then, finally on council, and I say finally on council, but then ending as friends. And I just want you to know, Lynn, that you make a difference. You said something in your speech about being a participant, that you participated in some of these things, and you did so much more than just participate. You were one of the first movers and shakers, whether you were a council member, whether you were a community member, or whether you were mayor of the town. I feel like you impacted it in so many different ways, in so many different times of your life, and you knew when to step back, and you knew when to take a bigger role, and I think that is admirable. I know it is. So, as a friend, as a mentor, as a leader of this community, you will be deeply missed. Our friendship will continue. You're not going so far, but I wish you well, and I hope that you spend a lot of quality time with the family.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Lynn, you're going to be missed. We've had some spirited debates on a lot of things, but always after that, I always respected you and your positions, even if I didn't agree with them all. But I think we made a better decision because of that. And I want to wish you well. Don't forget your passport, because I understand you need it up River Road.
That's right.
Good luck and best wishes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Lynn, I regret that I've only had about 8 years working with you. I would have liked to have had 25, but I've gotten 8, and I'm really pleased with that. You have been a tremendous addition to the council, and you have known when to support, when to question. I never thought of you as being opposed. I thought of you wanting better answers and more input. And that's such an important thing for bodies like ours to have. So again, you're going to be missed. I think you're an exceptional person. And I would have loved to have been here when you were mayor. It would have been great. We would have had fun, if nothing else. But anyway, you will be missed. Thank you so much.
We had a lot of late nights when I was mayor. Nothing wasn't me.
Are you encouraging that? Well, and thank you once again. And the next meeting is June 24th. We're adjourned, and please join us for our cake and refreshments in the back. Thank you.